All right, Rotogrinders, here we are. It is Saturday night. Once again, we've got some excitement. We had the big King of the Diamond last night. We've got some qualifiers going on for Atlantis on our sponsor site, DraftKings. And we've got the DFBC with the follow-along show here on Grinders Live, sort of an after-dark affair. Now, I was a little up past my bedtime, so I only saw part of that, but I did get to see a few of the people interviewed, and it was quite fun seeing Mirage 888 and Rubble Succumbs. I'm sorry, I mean Rubble 44, Ducky's brother. So there we go. But I had a pretty good night in that contest. How did it work out for you, Boggs?
Not too good. I actually shit the bed, but fortunately, I've teamed up with one of the members of this community and ended up having a pretty good night. I guess the way I look at it is, I mean, I was pretty much all on the chalk plays. The night before, I tried to be cute, contrarian. Wasn't really working for me that night, so last night I said, you know what, I'm not going to screw around. I'm just going to go with the top plays, and unfortunately, didn't quite show out too well, but still made a little bit of money here and there. Thank you to my partner. And how did you do? Sounds like you had a pretty good night.
I did pretty well. I had 3 tickets that I won going into it, and then I bought a 4th because I liked the overlay, and that 4th lineup was none other than Marcus Stroman. Woohoo!
Yeah, I had a couple of him. That was a stinker, wasn't it?
Now, I can't complain because there's been a few times where I've bought in a last-minute ticket, and then that turned out being the one that was the best for me. So no worries there. But I had, I think I finished 17th or 18th with one entry. That was $5,000, and then I cashed for another one for $600. So I too had traded shares with some people. So my partners, they lucked out. So maybe next time I'll luck out. But hey, if you're green at the end of the night, who cares?
Absolutely, that's all that matters.
All right. Oh, and someone in chat was asking what I was going to do with all my newfound riches, and they suggested buying Mountain Dew, and I have some. So we're good. I'm going to be all excited.
You got a big-ass bottle of Mountain Dew. I was going to say, the last thing you need is another hat. You got about 50 behind you.
Well, now see, this one's sad. This one's almost gone, so I had to have the other one too. So there we go. Woohoo! I'm not going to be sleeping tonight. Yeah! All right, so quickly, chat. There are a couple of spots left in the Roto Grinders follow-along DFBC game. Now, the interesting thing about their slate is they are just doing they're excluding the late games, of which there's only one, and it's Clayton Kershaw. So no Kershaw tonight, which will be interesting. We've got a game in Colorado. We've got with some terrible pitchers. I don't even know that we want to call them pitchers. They can't throw better than me, but I don't know how many other people they can throw better than. And we've got some nice matchups here and there. There might be a Halo or two mentioned. There may be a National mentioned here and there. So let's see what's going on. Who do you like for your starting pitching? Outside of Kershaw, ad nauseum, he's everybody's top play. Where are you looking to after that?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different ways you can go. Our show is obviously, if I'm not mistaken, sponsored by DraftKings. That's an efficiency site where the win isn't as important. So that makes Felix Hernandez and David Price certainly in play tonight. Obviously, the tough matchup for Felix. I'm never a big fan of targeting pitchers against these big-time offenses. So I'm going to lean towards Price. Obviously a good matchup against. I don't know. Are you a Mariners fan? I know you went to Washington. Not to get too sidetracked, but how did my article turn into a college debate?
Well, yes, I went to the University of Washington. I actually grew up in the state of Washington. And not to confuse our viewing listeners, you can see all these Nationals hats here behind me. I now live outside of the D.C. area. I am not a front runner. There are only 2 teams that have never made a World Series. That's right, the Seattle Mariners and the Washington Nationals, my 2 favorite teams. Nobody can accuse me of being a front runner. So, that said, I like both. It just became harder to follow the Mariners this far out when the games don't start till 10 o'clock. So I've adopted the Nats. I adopted them when they were god-awful and back in the day when they had TV viewership, much like the Houston Astros, where they were having about 2,000 or 3,000 households turn in per game, which is not many. But to answer your question, yes, proud graduate of the University of Washington. And I saw some people talking about the Dust Devils, Dust Bunnies, Sun Devils, I mean. So I had to throw my comments in there too. And I knew once a couple of us did it, everybody that read the article and scrolled down was going to put their colleges in too. So there we are.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, they're the scum devils in my book. That's what I call them. But yeah, sorry about the little distraction, but we're having some fun here. Price, obviously has the resume coming in. Pretty good ERA, no real red flags, and a pretty good matchup against a Seattle team. I was gonna say your Mariners, not too good versus lefties. On a single pitcher site, I'm a little concerned about Price because not only is he gonna, probably have to go all 9 innings with the tough matchup in order to get the win, but he's got a horrible bullpen behind him, and like I said, it's a tough matchup. Detroit really hasn't been swinging it that well, so I could easily see both these pitchers not factoring into the win. Fortunately, on our sponsor DraftKings, you don't have to worry about that too much. You're looking for the guys that are the most consistent and I'm sorry, I'm losing it here. Consistent and efficient. I'm sorry, efficient pitchers. So those are the two guys. Price, Felix, they're in play, but I'm going to give the edge to David Price. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. Where we can't go with Kershaw, I'm looking at Price. Tough matchup going against King Felix, who is arguably, well, the best pitcher in the American League. If he had a little bit better offense, he might be just as good. But Vegas is calling this one a pick'em. So that tells you that when you got old Victor Martinez and Miggy Cabrera on one side and King Felix on the other, with David Price, you'd think that the Detroit would be a little bit have more of an advantage at home, but no, pick 'em. King Felix is in the zone. I got a little bit of each of them, but I figure if I'm not reaching for Price, then I want to drop down a little bit. So the two guys I'm looking at as I'm dropping down are Yordano Ventura, who has improved. He came out like a ball of fire, throwing some real heat. The team asked him, why don't you not throw it quite so hard? We think you're overthrowing it, so back it off just a little bit. So he seems to have regained some control. He's still striking out about a batter an inning over his last 60 innings, so we like that. And I like the matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota kind of out of it. They're sneaky effective, but there's nobody that terrifies you there. They're not great against anybody, but they're still kind of solid. It's just one. It's like a, what do you call it? It's like a little army marching towards you that nobody's great, but they just keep coming. So I think Ventura can get some strikeouts. I like that. The other guy I'm looking at is Henderson Alvarez, who is back from the DL, minimum stay on the DL. I think he had some shoulder inflammation. They just wanted to give him a little bit of a break. He's back. Now, while he doesn't throw strikeouts like he did the last couple of years, he's changed his, and you're better at giving insight on the pitching, but he's changed his philosophy, and he tries to keep the ball lower in the strike zone, which results in less strikeouts for him, but also less long balls, which was another weakness of his. So I think he's sneaky. I think some people are going to be forgetting about him. This is just if you're looking more for a little bit of a differentiation play. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket, but if you get one of those two guys, you can upgrade your bat. So that's kind of who I'm looking at that level. There's a couple below there, but I know you want to jump in with a certain someone, a halo that you may want to mention here. So I'll save him for you.
Absolutely, my boy Matty Shoemaker. Wrote him up in my article today. I think he's a great play on FanDuel, and I think he's a great play on DraftKings tonight. Kind of following along those lines. On the road, not the best matchup in the world, but Texas has been god awful of late. Shoemaker has those road numbers that might scare you off a bit, but his peripheral stats, as I mentioned in my article, suggest he's been pitching very well. High strikeout guy. He's got 3+ pitches, and really his only weakness is against left-handed batters. And does any left-handed batter in that Texas lineup scare you these days? I mean, you got Chu having the worst season of his career. Then you got Carp, Aducci. Really, the only guy I'm afraid of, believe it or not, in that lineup is Leonis Martin, and I don't say that very often. So, loving my boy Shoemaker. If you're not in the mood to pay up for Kershaw, or if Kershaw's unavailable, say over on FanDuel, love him on DraftKings too at his price. And that's pretty much all I got. Really, no red flags. Like I said, except for can be beaten up by lefties, but again, none of those lefties in that Texas lineup scare me one bit tonight.
All right, STL Cards. Don't make me stand up and prove one way or the other if your comment in chat is correct. A couple other pitchers. Gio Gonzalez. And I'm a Nats fan. I only will take him in a GPP. He's had some great strikeout games this season, but he's also fallen apart a little bit, and he's got a pretty high walk rate. So he's looking at one of his career high walk rates and career high strikeout rates. That's variance, and that's a GPP. Scrolling through here, there was one other guy. Oh, Chicago Cubbies. What do you think about Jonathan Neese?
I think it's an interesting play. Obviously, the Cubs, they can bang around lefties a bit. Surprisingly, are I think, if I'm not mistaken, within the top 10 in terms of WOBA versus lefties. But a lot of that success probably came from playing at Wrigley Field with the wind blowing out. At least I remember a couple high-scoring games this year. Going into New York, a spacious ballpark, Neese is he's really kind of flown under the radar. Really for me all season long. Haven't really been on him here and there. Not a guy, in my opinion, that's going to go out, dominate a game, and win you a GPP. But as a starting pitcher number 2 at his price, I think it might be worth even a risk, more so in your cash games, believe it or not. I know, like I said, I might be contradicting myself, but I just don't see really the upside for Neese. But I do love his price, and if some of these pitchers get banged around a bit, you could see Neese, perhaps win you a GPP. But for me, it's not so much about the upside. I just think he's a little bit of a safer play, if that makes any sense to you.
All right, and then lastly, or at least last in my end, what about Dan Straley? He's making his, or not Wrigley, but his Chicago Cubs debut, going against Jonathan Neese.
Yeah, not on Dan Straley at all tonight. Going to take the wait and see approach with him. It's on the road against a team. You got a couple guys in that lineup that can bang him around a bit. He does struggle versus lefties, and for that reason, struggles versus righties more actually. Struggles versus both, but I'm just not really on Dan Straley at all tonight. I know the price is tempting, but it's just not anywhere I'm looking tonight.
All right. Well, STL Cards has put in the chat, or not, pardon me, not the chat, but the message board. If he wins, he will host a free roll for all of us at RotoGrinders. So that will be fun. And as a bonus, if you can guess which pitcher he is going with this evening, and you are the first to post it in said message thread, and he wins, you get a cool 1,000. Wow. Not a bad way to get a little rooting interest in there. So if he's going to be a little sneaky, a little off the board, because he's going to play this one contrarian, I saved these two guys for last because this is where I was honing in. At first I thought it was going to be Dan Straley, but then I thought, no. He's a Cards fan. He can't quite do that. Then I thought it would be Shelby Miller, but that would just be a kick in the nuts if Shelby Miller screwed it up for him, and it's a Cardinal. So now I have settled on none other than Jesse Hahn. Because after such a poor season by Cardinal standards, by the best fans in baseball, they owe him. So if there's one night they can allow themselves to get blanked, why not tonight? Why not when Justin has them? And there we are, Jesse Hahn.
Hey, Jesse Hahn, he's a good young kid. I think this kid really is the real deal. Obviously, we won't know here until another hour which pitcher he ultimately goes with. But Hahn coming in, no red flags as far as I'm concerned. I mean, got a very low ERA, very low WHIP. High K percentage, which is largely due to the fact that he has a pretty good changeup. He's got a very nice movement on his two-seam with velocity, and in my opinion, he has the hands-down best curveball I've ever seen. And I don't say that, I don't use that word lightly, ever seen. But Jesse Hahn, when he's got command of that pitch, I remember I think it was his first or second start early in the year it was the one at the Giants in San Francisco. I mean, he was just lights out, man. He made Buster Posey look like an idiot at the plate, and that doesn't happen very often. So Jesse Hahn, that could be a sneaky contrarian play. I don't know. Do you have confirmation that that's the guy he's rolling with? Because I think that even for STL Cards, that might be a stretch with $1 million on the line.
Just a hunch. I have emailed him before the show. We did not talk about who he was playing. I know he likes to play things close to the vest, but considering both of us picked the same random upset NCAA bracket champion, I think I've done enough shows with him that maybe I'll have a little insight, but who knows? Who knows? I'm not the one playing for the $1 million, so I'd probably go with David Price, but I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, so we'll have to see who I pick in our Roto Grinders play-along game. Lastly, this one's for Yo Rocco. Any thoughts on Ruby De La Rosa before we move on into catchers, and take it away with catchers?
Other than the fact that I will not be playing him, don't really have too much on him. Just not a guy that I can trust, especially on a single pitcher site. I know that the Stros can strike out. I know he's got some pretty decent numbers, especially at home, but his K percentage is well below average, actually pretty poor on the season. And the fact that he struggles against lefties, there are a couple lefties in that Stros lineup that I think can get to Ruby De La Rosa. So not a guy I can trust regardless of price. Obviously, the upside's always there. We almost saw another gem from Clay Buchholz, who's pretty much lost it at this point early in his career, but they got to him last night. So I'm kind of expecting a back and forth game. Finally, good to start seeing some runs out there in Fenway. Similar to St. Louis, it's been like these two offenses that were pretty good last year, each of which won me my DFBC seat, believe it or not. I had a Boston stack and a St. Louis stack last year that won my seat. This year, not the same deal. But either way, not on Ruby De La Rosa. Just can't take that risk tonight.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about backstops. I'm thinking Devin Mesoraco. Oh, not very original there. I should check and see if he's in the lineup. He's had a couple spotty starts the last few games. He did pinch hit last night, and naturally I'm not seeing that one out yet. But I think he will be incredibly popular if he plays. We got to look at, is Rosario in on the other side? I know that's a righty-righty, but it's Dylan Axelrod.
No, it's Michael McHenry, who's actually been better against right-handed pitchers this year. Obviously, a little bit of a smaller sample size, but I think that whole game's in play. The over/unders, looking at it, says it's only 10. Probably should be 15, because while Jordan Lyles has been pretty effective, especially at Coors, Dylan Axelrod is not too good. But either way, if you're not on that game, I do like Mesoraco, more so for GPPs because of his high price tag. I don't think a lot of people will be inclined to pay up for him, but you could go down to a Diana Navarro. This is a guy that hits left-handed pitching. He's a switch hitter, but he hits left-handed pitching a little bit better than righties. In a pitcher's park against a hittable lefty and John Danks, I see no reason why Navarro, especially at his price, shouldn't be at least in consideration.
All right, my special sneaky play is in the lineup. He is batting in a righty-lefty situation, and that is Willen Rosario. Pardon me, Willen. Oh, I had a whole joke about 1L. Wellington with 1L, Castillo with 2 L's. There we go. He's batting 7th. He's at 3.2 on our sponsor site, DraftKings. I kind of like him as my low-end guy today. Anybody that you're looking at in the Oakland-Atlanta game?
No, and I actually wouldn't even consider taking either John Jaso or Stephen Vogt, especially in the National League Park with Norris out of that lineup. One of the two of those guys are going to get pinch hit for some point during that game, and Norris might end up getting in the lineup. But regardless, tough matchup. Didn't have to have those guys before. There's nothing that really points to you having to start one of those Oakland catchers. But in terms of value for me, I'm going just across the way and taking Yasmani Grandal. Batting cleanup and is coming in at a pretty cheap price tag. Like him a little bit, batting cleanup, like I said, against Shelby Miller, who struggles big time versus lefties. And he struggles versus lefties because he doesn't have a changeup. And so by that token, you're a 2-pitch pitcher. You're going to struggle versus the splits batter. But either way, Grandal coming in, I think he had a pinch hit home run last night. Swinging the bat well, guy with tremendous power. At his price, I think it's worth the risk.
All right. Anybody else you want to throw out there, or does that cover your catchers?
That pretty much does it for me. I think at Grandal at his price is is probably as low as I'd feel comfortable going. And then obviously, like I said, with Mesoraco at the top, I think he's in play. And then right in the middle, you got Diana Navarro. So yeah, those are my 3 guys, and that's pretty much all you're going to see from me tonight.
Just doing a little quick scroll here to see if there's anybody jumping out that we missed. Oh, Sal Perez batting third. Reverse splits, Phil Hughes. Righty on righty, but Perez has been hitting righties better this season. Yeah, still rather go Mesoraco or Navarro, I think. That's kind of it for me. All right. First baseman. I think there might be one tall guy hailing from the great state of Minnesota in his new home, Coors Field, that you may want to talk about. So lead off with first baseman.
Oh, yeah, baby. I'm all over Justin Morneau. It's actually from Canada, believe it or not. I actually think over near Washington, where you're from, British Columbia. Isn't that where that part of Canada near Washington?
That is right where that part of Canada is. And they had a 19-year-old drinking age when I was in college. So that was... I visited the fair north a few times, shall we say.
Yeah, well, like I said, Morneau, he's my top play of the day. It's in my article if you see it. I love him on FanDuel, love him on DraftKings. Again, Dylan Axelrod hasn't been up in the show yet this year, but last year when he was not very good versus righties versus lefties. Now he gets his first start in Coors, and I think it's going to be a slugfest. So I'm all over Morneau. Price is pretty moderate. That's not going to break the bank. Obviously, it's inflated a bit because he's in Coors Field, but so are his stats. It's Coors Field. So I think Morneau is definitely worth paying up for, especially in your cash games. He's very consistent versus right-handed pitching. Got a WOBA over 400 against righties. Just a guy you can rely on, and one of the few guys that's I guess he got hurt. I guess everyone's been hurt in that Rockies lineup this season, but he's getting the most games. So one of the guys that's keeping them afloat, I guess you could say, even though they're well in last place.
All right. King Mike says E5. Now, King Mike, we are told by our resident MMA expert that we need to refer to him as E squared or double E. But Edwin Encarnacion, either way, back off the DL, crushes opposite-handed pitching, like a 400 and something WOBA. Good play, top play for you. What are you thinking about old double E?
Well, unfortunately, I was on him a little bit too much last night. Still looked like he was healthy when I watched his at bats. It looked like he had the bat speed. Just probably shaking off a little rust, getting his timing back in. More of a GPP play for me because of his expensive price tag. And John Danks is, he can be effective with if he's got his changeup working. So I'm kind of leaning towards some of the cheaper Toronto bats for me tonight. Not necessarily have to have Encarnacion like I was yesterday. I was all over him, but it's not because he burned me. I just think at his price, Morneau is a little bit of a safer play, in my opinion.
Perhaps the league leader in home runs is something more your speed. Tied with two other players with 31, Jose Abreu gets a nice date with Destiny or Mark Burley.
Yeah, it's Abreu, one of these guys where he had those reverse splits and it was kind of strange. No one could really understand it earlier in the year. But once that sample size is kind of normalized, he's just good against everyone. I will say that a young and inexperienced hitter. I know Abreu's not necessarily like a 19-year-old. Who knows how old he is, but Burley can be effective against young and inexperienced pitchers. He'll get up there on the mound and he'll quick pitch you. Again, I'm liking Morneau over both Abreu and Encarnacion, but in a GPP, if you're looking for that multi-home run upside, I think that from that game, both those first basemen certainly have it tonight.
All right. A little airplane flying over Boggs' house there. The paparazzi, they're looking for something exciting, and, I'm waiting to see, what's her name? Lindsay Lohan? Is she going to dance behind camera there?
She ain't anywhere near me, man. I know I'm out in the L.A. area, but I'm not anywhere close to L.A., thank God.
All right. Just checking. You never know what's going to happen. We had Tommy G live on air on the Roto-Grinder show last night, sharing his or introducing his new squeeze to the rest of the DFS community, as only Tommy G can. All right, back to baseball. Think about baseball. Nothing but baseball, box scores. There we go. Focus, keep our mind. Never mind. That's a good joke, but I'm going to let that one go. First baseman. Let's see who else we like out there. Big Poppy. perhaps Mike Napoli?
Yep, I'm on both those guys. More so Poppy tonight. I was obviously on Napoli because he was facing a lefty last night, but I think Ortiz, he's due for a big game, and doesn't really mean much to a lot of people playing, but he's just hasn't really been the same this year. Hasn't really put it all together, and with them, I think the Red Sox acquiring Alan Craig. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure David Ortiz is a free agent after this year, if I'm not mistaken. He might have signed one more year extension, but it's going to motivate him. This is a guy that really doesn't need any motivation. He's one of the most outspoken team leaders. A great all-around ambassador for baseball. But he's obviously getting up there in age, and winning sometimes has an effect on his guys that are used to it. But either way, with the matchup tonight, I think Ortiz must be considered. You've got a lot of options at first base, but I'm really liking Ortiz and Morneau more so for cash games because I think he'll be the highest owned guy. But Ortiz at just $100 more, I think, is a nice GPP pivot at that same price.
All right, David Ortiz, formerly David Arias. Member of the Seattle Mariners briefly before going to the Minnesota Twins and then changing his name and his workout regimen and doing well with the Boston Red Sox. There we go. Yeah, he was like a slap singles hitter there for a while. I think Doug Manischewitz. Yeah, something like that. Big guy that just slapped singles hitter. But he learned how to hit the ball far. So
defensive specialist Doug Mankiewicz.
There we go. I knew you would be able to fill us in on the correct pronunciation of that. See, not only can I not get names of foreign-born players, I can't get names of U.S.-born players. I am an equal opportunity idiot. There we go. Anybody else at first base that you want to look at maybe on FanDuel? Let's consider this. If you are going with Kershaw, you got to take a look at Matt Adams, 2,600, Chris Davis, 3,100. Those are some good prices. Davis is flirting with the Mendoza line. I'm not so sure he's going to make any of my lineups on DraftKings just because his price. I'd rather reach up a little more for a big bopper if possible. But those are the kind of rounding out the last couple guys I'm looking at first base. Any thoughts on them or anyone else before we pivot to the keystone position?
Sure. I know I said I was on Jesse Hahn a little bit, but Matt Adams, for whatever reason, this guy's price just never seems to rise. It's just pretty steady throughout the industry. It's too cheap, and he oftentimes goes overlooked. Sometimes, if he's got a really great matchup, you'll see him very over-owned, but with a ton of great options tonight, I think if you're looking to save and spend on pitching, Matt Adams is a good place to start. Not with you on Chris Davis. I know you said you weren't going to really take him, throwing him out there, but I'm pretty much about to write this guy off. He's just lost at the plate. But if you are looking for some even more value, you have Gabby Sanchez, again, versatile lefty, batting fifth, and you got good old Paul Konerko, batting sixth, coming in at 2.6K on DraftKings, and over on FanDuel, I think he's only 2.3. This is a guy that can hit Burley. I mean, I think the career numbers against kind of speak for themselves, but Paul Konerko, wily veteran, those are the guys that can hit Burley because, quite simply, Burley just doesn't have good stuff. He plays the mind game with you. Like I said, he quick pitches you, and he still does have a good changeup. But Paul Konerko, he can sit on one of those and get a hold of one. Could be a nice value spot for a long ball tonight.
I liked Paul Konerko. He's in his final season tour, just not quite getting the hype that one Derek Jeter is. These are the last few moments he's going to have to do something crazy. Thank you for calling that one out. That's a good price and a good matchup.
Yep.
Second base, Jason Kipnis.
Yep, I think Kipnis is well in play tonight. With Michael Bourne getting back in the lineup, he's going from the leadoff spot to fifth. But I actually like that a little bit better because you got three, or aside from Jose Ramirez, who you just don't have too much on him yet, but you got three guys in Santana, Brantley, Bourne, who are big-time on-base percentage guys, guys that, at least in Brantley and Bourne's case, can steal a bag off of Ubaldo Jimenez. We'll get to those guys a little bit later. But, great matchup for Kipnis. I like him in that, fifth spot for those RBI opportunities. And I think that the Indians Might be a sneaky stack. I don't know. They've been doing it all year against right-handed pitching. So I'll be curious to see their ownership percentage. You're gonna have to pay up for Kipnis, but like I said, I actually like him better now that he's batting fifth as opposed to leading off.
All right, D. Gordon. Now I went to bed a little early last night, but I did see he had a caught stealing. That was about a $2,500, $3,500 swing for me in the King of the Diamond with that caught stealing. Glad I was asleep when that happened.
Yeah, I could imagine. But at least he stole 2 other bags for you. If he wouldn't have stolen any bags and got caught stealing, you might not have been as good as you were. But either way, I'm back on him tonight. I know Gallardo's been effective versus left-handed bats, but D. Gordon's just swinging it well right now. And I really love his price pretty much across the industry. Obviously, I guess it's a little pricey, would you say, on DraftKings. He's around 4K, but you know what you're going to get. If he gets on base, he's off to the races. And like I mentioned in my article, especially with Clayton Kershaw on the bump, if he gets on in that first inning, whenever he's going to try and press the issue. He's going to be off to the races. Like I said, they're going to try and get Kershaw some runs early so he can settle in and just cruise, because no one wants to see that Dodgers bullpen.
Yeah, I think he is a little pricey on DraftKings. I've pretty much locked Kipnis in as my second baseman there. But on FanDuel, $2,900, hard to forget that one. Another guy, Anthony Rendon, qualifies at second and third on our sponsor DraftKings because we have multi-pitcher eligibility here, which is always a nice little bonus. Now he has been good in righty-lefty matchups in his case, and I like him tonight. I think some people are going to overlook him, forget about him a little bit. I like him going against Jeff Luck. There we are. And then I'm going to see here if there's anybody else. That's about going to do it for me. I guess I'm kind of paying for Kipnis tonight on DraftKings, and then over on the other side, I've got D. Gordon. Two players I'm going with tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. Don't love the matchup for Cano. Same can be said for Altuve. Now that Boston has Christian Vasquez catching pretty much full time, he's an excellent defensive catcher. So I don't really like Altuve's stolen base potential tonight. But I'm pretty much with you, unless you want to take a flyer on the young kid Javier Baez, who's he's got some pop. But I definitely agree with you about Rendon. I think he's a fine cash game play. I think he's fine for GPPs. If you've got the salary to pay up for him, light him up, because you're right, he has been lights out versus lefties all season long.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check out here if there's anybody that's worth a cheapy flyer. So what I like to do is I like to go to the Roto Grinders lineups page, and we'll put the link in the chat here for everyone. And you can click on by position. There's a salary bar slider here. You can even type the salary that you want in the box, and it will highlight everybody that is that salary or less. And I'm just looking through here. Oh, I see somebody caught my eye on outfield. Let's just throw that out before I forget. David Lowe is batting second at 1.8 there for Baltimore. We'll have to consider him against Carlos Carrasco, but we'll get to outfield in a second. And I'm just not seeing anybody else jump here for me. I'm really feeling confident with going with my Kipnis gambit. Altuve's a little too pricey. Pedroia is a little banged up and just not looking good this season. Maybe Colton Wong, but are we paying for a recent flash in the pan, or is there substance to this kid? So I think all the Kipnis for me tonight. Any reason to talk me out of it, or shall we move on to the hot corner?
I do think there are a couple of different value options. Starting with Gordon Beckham, batting second. Again, a young hitter, could struggle versus Burley, but either way, he's been hitting lefties all season long. And you also got Steve Tollefson in the lineup on the flip side of that game for Toronto, batting ninth, but he comes in with a pretty good WOBA versus lefties as well. So you got two similar type pitchers. I think John Dinks is if I don't even know if you could say it is a poor man's Mark Burley. These guys can be effective versus right-handed batters. But either way, guys that can hit them are going to hit them. These guys just don't have the stuff to go out and dominate a game, say like a Kershaw. So I am liking those guys for some value if you're looking to save at second base. And really, I think it's all around the night in general. There's value spread throughout the league. in addition to some of these top plays. So I think in some of these tournaments, there's not necessarily one team that or necessarily one kind of player at a certain position that you have to target because the matchup's just so great, which makes it make for an interesting night.
All right. Well, I typed in chat to see if you would say the magic word. You did not. The magic secret word tonight was Danny Valencia. Now, you mentioned Tolson, so I just had to click over there and see where he was batting. He's batting ninth, but Valencia batting fifth. Thoughts on him? Have we overlooked him?
All over him. I was going to get to him when we get to third base.
Okay. Well, I'm jumping ahead.
Fair enough, but he does have second base eligibility on DraftKings, which is nice. You can go ahead and slot him right in there, but we'll get to him when we get to third baseman.
All right. Well, let's take her off with third baseman, starting with Danny Valencia.
Hey, again, a guy that crushes left-handed pitching. This might be one of these guys that gets highly owned tonight, but either way, he's in a terrific matchup. Hitter's Ballpark at a punt price. I don't have a problem if he's even 50 or 60% owned because, like I said, it's a punt, more or less. Hitting fifth, right behind Encarnacion, sandwiched in between Navarro and some other lefties. I'm really liking this Jays lineup. Similar to yesterday. Hopefully they don't burn me like they did yesterday, but either way, I think that this lineup has some serious potential tonight, especially with all the value spread throughout it.
Yeah, I was getting a little excited. I may have to move Valencia over to third because I was thinking about Lonnie Chisenhall, but he's batting seventh. That kind of makes me a little sad. Pedro Alvarez, yeah, that makes me a little sad too. Interesting. I'm not as high on Chisenhall as I was before. I don't know what I was thinking. I had him in my mind locked in and batting fifth or sixth. Seventh is just 2 spots away. It shouldn't make that much of a difference. Apparently it does. Apparently I'm hung up on that.
You can thank Michael Bourne for that. Once he factors in the lineup, everything changes.
Oh, is there a Michael Bourne sighting tonight? Is he back?
Yep, back and leading off. Who knows how fast he'll be, but I think he was dealing with a hamstring injury. So kind of taking the wait-and-see approach on him, but I guess we'll get to him when we get to the outfielders. We're getting too ahead of ourselves here, EMac.
All right, well, let's stay with the same team. Lonnie Chisenhall, we like the lefty, so now that I know that Bourne's back, perhaps that means another guy on the base paths for him. Matt Carpenter, I always like Matt Carpenter, and that's really it for me tonight at third base. I like Adrian Beltre, however, with not much of a team around him, his value just isn't quite what I would like it to be. His price is down a skosh, but not enough to make me jump on him. Potentially Anthony Rendon, since he does also qualify for third base. I'd consider Miggy Cabrera, but he has 3 home runs since I think it was July 1st. I'm not sure I'm excited by that. And then maybe Josh Harrison. He qualifies, depending on your side, at second, third, or outfield. I don't mind him. He's actually pretty good against lefties, going against Gio Gonzalez.
Well, one guy I didn't bring up, Nolan Arenado. No love for him tonight?
That's an excellent point. I was going to try to fade the Rockies tonight. I hate when there's game in Coors because it seems like everybody's on them. Arenado is, let's think, it is a righty-righty matchup tonight, but he got a home run last night. Man, he is slick with the glove. I like watching him and Manny Machado. Machado, unfortunately, kind of has another little knee injury. It's his other knee, thankfully, so hopefully nothing serious. But I think you're right, Arenado. I probably should have thrown that out there. And then now that you've got me looking back here at the Colorado game, no Todd Frazier. He's dealing with the back spasms, so he may miss the whole series here. Maybe a little while before we see him. But Arenado, 4,300. Little bit of power, batting cleanup. Dylan Axelrod. Dylan Axelrod. You've got me sold. With the Boggslite seal of approval. There we are.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I just love watching this kid play baseball. I mean, obviously, defensively, he's a wizard over there at third base. Probably the best since Brooks Robinson, believe it or not. But, I love watching his, highlight reel plays. But, hey, he's bringing the bat with him this year. And batting cleanup against a hittable pitcher. I mentioned, Axelrod's bad versus lefties. He's worse versus righties, at least in the last sample size we've got from last year. So just don't sleep on Arenado. I think a lot of people think he could be sneaky. And you also got Michael Kadire back in the lineup, taking the wait-and-see approach on him. But he's one of my favorite hitters in all of baseball. So I just really like the lineup. I'm expecting a lot of runs in that game. And I think Arenado might fly under the radar because, like I said, I think people are going to just see lefty-righty target Blackman, Morneau, Dickerson. But don't sleep on Nolan Arenado because he's got some serious potential.
God, just think if they had Tulo and Cargo in that lineup. That would be one heck of a lineup. Sadly, what could have been? What could have been? That's good to see Kadire back there. I hadn't realized he was back. So both he and oh no, I'm blanking. Michael Bourne, and then all the most, not all, but most of the Toronto guys came back. Seems like everybody's getting healthy at the same time here.
Yep, unfortunately, it's a little too late for some of these teams, but I don't know, who knows? Maybe Toronto's got one last push in them, but Colorado, man, it's just a shame. I mean, they started off the year on an absolute tear, and then everyone got hurt. I mean literally everyone, I think, has spent time in the DL, maybe except for Dickerson. I mean, Dickerson became a full-time player because of all these guys getting hurt. But, yeah, really a disappointing season for them.
All right, I think that rounds up the third baseman. Oh, I'm looking. I don't know if he's in the lineup. Brock Holt. I like going against Brad Peacock. I had him in my write-ups this morning.
Yeah, he's leading off. Solid option. A little up, not as high upside, but he has shown in the past that he can put together some big games. I do like him, but similar to Carpenter, not a guy I target in GPPs.
Yeah, good point. Good point there. If that's it, let's roll on over here to shortstop. I'm thinking I'm going to see a heavy dose of Eric Ivar in my lineups today. Any problem with that?
It's tough because I've finally come around to Ibar, but unfortunately I'm doing it at a time in which he's struggling big time at the plate. I think he's only got, 2 RBIs since the All-Star break. Just really not looking good at the plate, and from what I've been watching, he's getting a heavy dose of off-speed pitches. So a guy that's never patient at the plate, really doesn't have a solid place in that lineup. I would prefer to see him batting more towards the end of that order, like 8th, but because the Angels, they don't have very much power in that lineup. You find him batting 5th, sometimes 6th, sometimes even 4th. But again, like I said, not swinging the bat well. Fortunately, his price is down, so I do like the matchup tonight against Colby Lewis. Obviously, it was all over my Halos yesterday, and they somewhat disappointed. At least Calhoun came through. But, I think that they're still in play tonight. You got to play the matchups. He's going to break out of that slump sooner or later. And Colby Lewis giving up a WOBA over 400 definitely makes Ibar in play for me.
All right. You know who is in play and very cheap? And if you're going with his pitcher, Clayton Kershaw, you may want to look at Miguel Rojas. I don't have no idea who he is, but he's 1.8 on our sponsor DraftKings. And if you want Kershaw and anybody else that represents a major league pitcher of any skill, you're going to have to go cheap. So perhaps I pivot off Ibar, Admiral Akbar, and go to Miguel Rojas.
I wouldn't do that.
You sure? It would be fun, maybe.
It could be fun, but it's likely not going to be fun for you. I mean, if you like burning money, that could be fun sometimes, but I don't. And if you want to punt shortstop, I think you turn to Zach Walters, someone who actually can hit the ball out of the park, because you have literally zero upside, and you can't trust Miguel Rojas find a way to get $300 extra because you got Zach Walters down there. I know he's batting 7th, but obviously he hit a big home run last night. Helped a lot of people out that were on him. I think the kid's a real deal, and I mean, as a Nats fan, I think he had a few clutch pinch hit home runs, if I'm not mistaken, for your Nats before they traded him away.
Indeed he did, and he hooked me up all proper last night, but I wasn't looking at him because I was highlighting shortstops, and that is the only downside of our tool with multi-position eligible players is sometimes when you're looking for them, they're only showing one position. So that's all right. Definitely Zach Walters. My apologies for missing him, but I don't mind that. What about Jose Reyes? All the Toronto Blue Jays tonight, just every single one of them, just for Pepsi. This one's for Pepsi. This one's for Warren. Bills fan 777. Did you know that Bills fan has a secret Twitter campaign trying to get Bon Jovi to buy the team so he does move the Bills to Toronto? I just wanted you to know he was behind that grassroots campaign. Who knew?
Hey, I mean the guy's a diehard Toronto fan. I mean I've seen him know him well obviously from hockey season. Unfortunately, his Maple Leafs, same with Pepsi, didn't have a good season, but maybe the Jays can surprise because he is a diehard Jays fan. In addition to being for whatever reason a huge Raptors fan. I didn't know they actually had fans, but that's my 2 cents in my shot at Bills fan. But yeah, as far as Reyes is concerned, not on him tonight, believe it or not. I think every other Toronto Blue Jay is in play except Jose Reyes and Rasmus. Just don't like him. Reyes against the lefty, no stolen base potential. He really hasn't shown any power versus lefties this year. The upside really isn't there without him stealing bases. So perhaps if if the Jays can get to John Danks and he's facing a reliever, even in that point, unless it's a close game, if the Jays are ahead by 5, 6, 7 runs, he's not going to be stealing. So I just don't see the upside in taking Reyes tonight. I'm going to be fading him like the plague.
Anybody in Wrigley Field that you might be interested in at shortstop?
Wrigley Field, or is it in?
Oh, Citi Field. Citi Field. God, I was all going to set that up for you, but it didn't work. All right.
Yeah. I think anytime a shortstop's batting cleanup, you got to consider him. Don't have to have Castro, but I just think at a position that really lacks any consistency, he's the one guy that's actually proving to be consistent this year. So I think more so of a cash game play, but it's hard to ignore. I mean, he's got like a 17-game hitting streak going. He's just tearing the cover off the ball. But as a result, his price is starting to creep up. I like him a little bit more on FanDuel than on DraftKings at that price, but either way, definitely in play for me.
All right, the last guy I'm really looking at with any seriousness would be Ian Desmond, who I like to take in righty-righty matchups. He's also pretty good against lefties. So a little less power, a little more average than it is righty-righty matchups, but I think he's pretty good tonight.
Hey, and he can steal you a base, too, if you need him to. But, yeah, I think it's more of a GPP play for me. I can't really necessarily trust Desmond in especially a righty-righty matchup in my cash games. So just take it for what you are. I do see the upside, though. Very few guys do have that kind of upside at shortstop.
Indeed. All right, well, in chat here, am I going to have to referee this? We've got Dean sniping at Pepsi, telling Pepsi he's cheap for shameless plugs. Dino, come on. Pepsi may be cheap, but he's not easy. So, with that, don't forget to tune in to our special edition of Grinders Live Sweat Show DFBC style. There's going to be a lot of content coming to you tonight. Pepsi is going to break down the various lineups on video, so that will be good. We can check that out. We can see his thoughts. He is the reigning champion. And then tonight from 10 to midnight on Sirius XM, we have Christopher, Beermakers Fan Prince, and Dean 7890210 on Sirius XM, the sports fantasy channel. And you can actually call in if you would like. That's 888 XM Fantasy, 888-963-2826010. Anyway, you can call in. It'll be a good time. I listened to him last weekend. Dean is pretty damn good at this radio stuff. Holy cow! I was impressed. Did you get a chance to listen in on that?
Unfortunately, I do not have Sirius XM in my car or at home, but I'm thinking about I gotta buy that so I can listen to these guys. I don't doubt you. Dean's obviously a enthusiastic and clever character, but he also knows his stuff, and it's fun working with him.
Yeah, he was rattling off some dynasty football advice just like it was nothing. It was, wow, it's your world, Dino. We're just living in it. But with that, we got to talk about a few outfielders here. We got to get in a Star Street Pick 5 and a Rapid Fire Max. So we are going to go quickly, lightning round style. Michael Brantley, yes, absolutely. Nelson Cruz, Adam Jones, enjoy them. Both good against righties. Jose Bautista, absolutely. We're not fans of John Diggity Danks tonight. Jay Bruce and Billy Hamilton. In Coors, gotta like that, against a less than stellar righty. I didn't realize that Colorado Rockies had any righty pitchers left. Apparently they do, and he's going tonight. And then, of course, we got Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, and maybe Andre Ethier if you're feeling a little frisky. to round out your outfield options?
If Ethier even gets a start, I think he's relegated to the bench forever. Is he in that lineup tonight? Nope. Uh, but either way, I agree with the most part. I just will say one thing about those Baltimore bats. I don't like him as much tonight. I think Carrasco, a guy that's very, very effective versus righties, not necessarily a guy who's going to, I think, go out and have a dominant game by any means, especially with his ERA. But you look at that Wilbo versus righties, it's 260, and he's got a very high K percentage against them. So not necessarily on the Baltimore guys, but I'm with you on everyone else. And don't forget about the Angels in the outfield, if you didn't mention those guys. They're all in play for me tonight.
We were going to start talking pre-show, but then I got distracted by, something shiny over there. What's up with Josh Hamilton? His numbers look great, but he's not producing.
Yeah, it's a curious case with him. I mean, who knows? I can't explain the guy. I don't know what's going through his head, but for whatever reason, just I guess he doesn't like hitting in Arlington anymore. But either way, I like it more so in GPPs, but obviously Trout and especially Calhoun at his price, I think are solid cash game plays. I think they're all well in play for a stack, especially with that recency bias going on. I think they burned a lot of people last night. So you could see them a little bit under-owned given the matchup, probably more so than you would, especially with that game in Coors going tonight. So I think that, light them back up because they're just going to slowly heat up, and all it's going to take is one of these big innings, and they're going to go on another one of these tears. That's just how they roll, man. I've watched too many Angel games for my own good. I know how this team operates, and it's going to take one big inning, and then you're going to be stacking these guys every single night.
All right. Now, Pepsi. I was just saving the best for last, and it makes for the perfect segue. As we move on into a Star Street Pick 5, we got to go with Giancarlo Mike Stanton, who I'm taking, versus Mike Trout. Where are you going to land on this one, Paul?
That's a tough one. Trout hasn't been stealing bags like you would hope this year, but Colby Lewis, one of the slowest guys to home plate, I think at some point during that game, if Trout's able to get on, he's going to steal. And I tell you what, he just missed a couple pitches last night. Obviously, could have shaken everything up because he was very highly owned. I think he's just he's about to get it. If you're strictly playing the matchups, I still think Trout's in a better spot. But Stanton at home versus a lefty, it's hard to ignore. So. That's a tough one, but I think I'm going to lean my boy Trout.
All right, fair enough. You're wrong, but that's okay. All right, Jose Bautista or Corey Dickerson. Now, when would you have ever compared the two of these guys together? I got to go Bautista. Am I overlooking it? Am I being crazy? I can't go with Dickerson. I got to go with Bautista versus a lefty.
I agree with you. It's a tough matchup. I mean, still, Bautista comes in with better numbers versus lefties. I'm not sold on John Danks. I know he's put together a couple of good starts here and there, but the matchup in Dickerson's favor, it's not that much more in his favor. And I think you can trust Bautista A, and he's got more upside B. So I'm going to go Bautista in that one.
All right. Edwin Encarnacion or Michael Brantley. I'm going to go with Brantley just because I think E5's a little rusty.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, it's crazy to say. It's not going to be close in my opinion. I think that Brantley, you're going to get some solid points, but it's either going to be boom or bust for E Edwin Encarnacion, E squared, not E5.
No, it's E5 because Pepsi and his Fists of Fury are safely in Toronto. I'm down here. I'm in Virginia. I can say E5. Now, when we're in person, it is Mr. Encarnacion.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say I'm with Pepsi. I don't get the nickname. I never did. Obviously, when he played third base, he was terrible. E5, yeah, I get it. Funny. But same thing with Carlos Gomez. His nickname is not Cargo Light. No one calls him that. It's Go-Go, and no one knows it. But, boy, hey. If it sticks, I guess it works. I mean, we got ourselves all in the community saying dongs every time someone hits a home run, so I guess it is what it is.
Dongs and lots of shower talk tonight. I'm not sure this is what I signed up for. All right. Adam Jones, Ioannis Cespedes. I think that Onges just puts that in there, so I have to say Ioannis Cespedes.
Yeah, exactly. But you got it right, and it's a tough one for me because it's funny. I was on 2 nights ago, and he still looked like he was, when he went 0 for 5, I think it still looked like that thumb or whatever he's been dealing with is bothering him. But then he obviously homered last night. So, I mean, anytime, at any point, if that thing's hurting a little bit, it can affect its whole swing. It's a tough one. I said I really wasn't on those Baltimore bats, but in the pick 5, I'm going to go with Adam Jones.
I'm on with you on that one. And then lastly, boy, was this our fourth Toronto Blue Jay? We have David Ortiz, Melky Cabrera. I'm going Ortiz tonight.
I don't even think is Melky in the lineup tonight?
Ooh, good point. Let's check real quick there.
Yeah, he is. He's batting second.
Oh, all right. Well, whatevs. I'm still taking him. Oh, I must be tired. There's the whatevs. Let me get some more Mountain Dew here. While we round out the rapid fire.
Who is it up against? Who is it up against?
Does it even matter? Big Papi.
It was Big Papi versus
Melky.
Yeah, I'm going Big Papi.
All right. So as I'm looking here at the rapid fire max, it gives me an option for NFL and college football, which is right around the corner. But we're just going to pick in the middle here, and we're going to go with MLB quickly and finish out the show because we have other coverage that is getting ready to start for the DFBC. Quickly, we have Sonny Gray or Felix Hernandez. I'm going Felix, even though it is the Detroit Tigers.
I agree with you.
Mike Trout or Jose Bautista. Now, this one seems a little familiar. I'm going to go with Bautista. I'm guessing you're going with Trout. We've done this one before. Edwin Encarnacion or David Ortiz.
Well, hey, we didn't do that one. We did. It was Stanton versus Trout, and you're still going to pick against my boy Trout.
Oh, it was. I'm sorry. No, I'm going to take Trout. I'm going to take Trout then.
Attaboy.
Sorry. I'm looking ahead. I've got a bunch of other shit lined up. Sorry. Stuff. Sorry, Dan. Encarnacion or Big Papi?
Oof. I'm going to go Big Papi still.
I am too. Edwin a little bit rusty. Michael Brantley or Chris Carter, all he does is catch touchdowns. Wait, that's the other one. Chris Carter, all he does is hit home runs. Or Michael Brantley.
Same deal with the Brantley matchup from before. You go with what's consistent, but again, you just don't have that potential. So I'm still taking Brantley because probably more often than not in that same matchup, he's going to come through for you.
All right, and our last matchup, Justin Morneau or Giancarlo Stanton. I got to go with Stanton.
Well, that's a tough one. I will say one thing. I wasn't on Wade Miley, and I'm not. But I will say he's a better pitcher than Dylan Axelrod. So take that for what it is. I'm going to go with you. I got to agree with you one time, at least on the show. I'm going to go Stanton, even though I do really love Morneau tonight.
All right, so we're all over the place on this one. Don't play the rapid fire match. Just play the pick 3 right. And you know what? Your guess probably as good as ours. So let us know how you do on Twitter at Boggslite and at EMac TFS.
Oh God.
For that. And then lastly, just to round out, we've got a little bit of overlay brewing in the $200 44th shot at a ticket to Atlantis. Not Atlanta, but Atlantis. Someplace warm and where you can win $1 million. Now, it's a $200 buy-in, but it is only half full right now. There are about 200 entries out of 375. I think I'm going to have to put one ticket in there since I got a little change angling in my pocket after last night's King of the Diamond.
Hey, that's how it starts, man. When you're hot, you're hot. Let that baby ride.
Anything else you want to throw out to our fair chat room fans here, other than stay tuned all night because someone is going to be crowned a millionaire, and odds are it will be someone in the Grinders community, so this should be fun. And if it's Tommy G, just tune on to CNN tomorrow morning, and you can see Vegas riding in the streets.
Oh, yeah, that's it. He's going to be burning. But, yeah, just good luck to all the guys that qualified. It's long, obviously, drawn-out process. It's finally there. All those guys, I'm sure, are going to enjoy it. I was there last year. It was a tremendous experience. Gets better every year, but hopefully one of these grinders takes it down because it would certainly be cool to see one of these guys take home $1 million.
Indeed it would. Indeed it would. All right. So with that, thank you, DraftKings, for sponsoring the show. Thank you, Roto Grinders, for giving us this fun platform to share some knowledge. Thank you, Boggs. Excellent pitching insight, as always. Love hearing you talk about that. Sound like a real, true announcer. I'm looking forward to you taking over that booth for Vin Scully one day. And with that, we will say, good luck, gamers.